it's cold. Winter in Cumbria, always fun for working in your garage, but at least it's above freezing, but only just above freezing. So part 3 of the Spaceframe car build, but really part 1 of the build work proper, because I've started working on the trailer. And as I spin it round, you'll see all its clothes fell off. So what I've been doing is working on the actual framework. Well, the framework has to be widened and lowered to get it under these ramps that are beside me, under this height here, for storage and for general maintenance and just for general convenience, as mentioned in the previous video, link above. And so what I've started to do is I've started to undo all the pop rivets that are holding the alloy, or they're not alloy, the galvanized sheet panels together, and also the tech screws, I think they're called, that were holding various bits to various other pieces, and also the metric ton of sealant that was between the panels. Some of it was just like general purpose white silicone sealant, silicone rubber to waterproof it. But some of it was, I don't know what product it was, but it was really hard work to pry the panels apart. I've had to deform the panels using pry bars to actually get them to separate, and there wasn't many pop rivets holding it on. It was mainly along this top edge here that it had lots of sealant in it. I mean, you can still see little bits of it if you look carefully, but most of it is taken off in lumps, and a load of it has gone in the bin. And obviously here you've got your tech screws that will hold it together. I've retained those for the moment in case we need them, but there was like millions of pop rivets as well. And what I've done is I've taken the heads off to enable me to take the alloy sheet, the galvanized sheet off. Then I've drilled them out and punched them through, and then cleaned up the holes in the metalwork, and then I've given it all a rub down and a quick paint. At the moment the paint is just there to stop it from continuing to rust, because there was no paint on the bare metalwork, so it's more of a preventative measure. I do realise that as we progress properly working on the trailer, that a lot of this will get ground off as we redo welds and things. For example, this upright here, it needs to move forward by, I think it was 170 mil, because as you look down here, the plan is to move this metalwork to the outside of here to give us more room for loading the car, because, you know, not much room, as you can see at the back edge. So we can't move it in the same place, because obviously that's where the suspension pivots. So what I'm going to do is move it to here roughly, so it's out of the way, which just happily coincides with this horizontal beam. So the immediate plan is to clean it off as much as possible where I can access it, because obviously the car is still, I mean, you can hardly see it, but the car is buried under there on the trailer. Do a few bits and pieces, clean off as much rust as possible. I've got all the front end sorted, the hitch and everything. I worked out what was wrong with the actual hitch mechanism itself. There was a spring that's broken, and it's only like a £2.50 part. So I get one of those and put in, and that enables the trigger spring to click back into place, and it helps stop the ball from coming out with the socket, if that makes sense. It's got the new jockey wheel on, and at the moment I've just got it all stripped down while I'm painting it all up. You can just see it sitting there. Some of the metalworks had one coat and some's had two. We're on to a new kind of paint now, and it's like water putting it on. It's not very good for coverage at all, so it's going to need like 3 coats minimum to protect the metalwork. It doesn't have to be fantastic, because it's a trailer at the end of the day, and nobody's going to see it because these outside edges are going to be covered with the galvanized sheet. There is a slight issue in that obviously you got a galvanized sheet and you did have bare metal, and it was causing corrosion between the two where water was getting in. So it's affected some of the galvanized sheet a little bit, but I figure with paint to act as a separation barrier, and obviously we're going to put sealant back on it, because the idea is, as I've said before, these sides are just coming out and down, which means that the panels that you can see over there, these ones, they're all stacked up in the back edge. In theory, they're going to just go straight back on. There will be some alterations to make, because obviously we're moving the spacing on this one, from moving it forward, so the original pop rivet holes aren't going to line up, so we'll just re-drill those in that panel, and then probably just have a join on the two panels there with pop rivets. I don't think it'll take any harm, and then just basically reuse the same panels on the sides, and then the front in here, and then obviously on top that'll have new galvanized sheet, which I've just done the order for. All in all, steelwork, there's quite a bit of steelwork to buy. I've overbought, because we're thinking of also adding some triangulation in, because when you look inside the trailer, the roof, and then on the sides, there's no triangulation at all. It's just all straight, and also it's a little bit wobbly. But then again, when you look at the way the metalwork is, there's only a weld on the inside edge. So when obviously this one's going to move, but the ones that aren't going to move, before we start cutting the center section and moving it all out, we're going to put some extra welds on just to stiffen it up a tiny bit before we start cutting the center section out, because that's all going to be new metal. So it's new galvanized sheets to reach the wider width, new steelwork to go side to side, and we'll probably end up using some of this steelwork that's in there cleaned up and using it as diagonals to stiffen up the frame, and also as solid mounting points for the door hinges. Well, the door hinges, we're going to have a solid in across here, and then have a door in here so we can access the wheels to tie it down. I've ordered the metalwork and the fixings for those as well, and we're just going to bend those up ourselves and weld it all up. The idea is to have a wheel chock in here up against the wheel, probably, I'm not sure which way around I'm going to put it yet, and then there'll be a ring on fastened through here, and then your ratchet strap will come up over the tyre down to a D-ring that's going to be in the floor just there, and then to a fastening that's back here. So that way you got, so your ratchet strap goes from there, tight to there, tight across the top of your wheel, and then down there, and then hopefully we've got enough space in here, although there isn't much, to put the ratchet strap in. They only have to be light duty straps as well, because well, the car probably weighs somewhere between 400 and 500 kilograms, so we don't need 2-3 ton ratchet straps, which are huge. We'll just use some light duty ones, maybe half-ton ones or something like that. See what we can find that are suitably small, and we'll go through all our D-rings and secure the car so they'll be fastened at the front. And then at the back edge, we're thinking of perhaps putting something down the side to stop it from walking from side to side against the on the runway, and perhaps in the back corner where we're going to have the single towing point for the car, maybe I'll be able to do something there using a super short ratchet strap. I don't know, it's going to be very tight for room because of the distance between the back of the trailer and the car. So yeah, so that's where we're at really with the trailer. It's it's looking worse before it looks better, as these projects always do. And then you can see here I've got a pile of all the panels that are getting cleaned up. You can see, for example, on this one, you can see how I had to forcibly separate it because it was that well stuck down. You can see all the sealant on the underside of it there, holding it in place. So this afternoon's job is to finish cleaning off those panels. I think there's not a lot more painting I can do. I've just repainted the hitch with some heavy duty paint. I've done some of the front panel work, the front triangular A-frame section. That's been done with a couple of coats. There's some more bits on the sides. So I've also looked at the wheels and the suspension. The front two wheels are the braked ones. Appears to be a mini hub, looks identical. And surprisingly, the adjusters aren't seized and they look absolutely spot on. A bit dusty inside, but apart from that, all good to go. Apart from the fact that all four wheel bearings are shot. So I've got some of those on order because obviously it was mini spares Black Friday sale on at the moment. So, well, it finished last night, so I did my order last night. So I've got some wheel bearings for those. I've got all the lights ready to go back on, all the reflectors ready to go back on. I've got the wiring front to back is there already, it just needs shortening because it was over long, and I'll reroute it neatly and all that. I'll probably also put a junction box in. Well, I'll need to put a junction box in to take feeds off for the lights, the marker lights and all that sort of stuff, so I will need some extra cable for that. But I've got tons of scrap cable lying about at home from work. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Quite a long talky video, not a lot to see happening, but it explains that I am starting to make some progress on the trailer. It's pretty slow, and it's laborious work because it is that well stuck together. It might not have a million really strong rivets in it or screws, but by God, this sticky stuff is half holding it together. And then once we get the car up there finished, brakes done on that, then the red hot will be going on there to get sorted for its front suspension, get that sorted on there, axles, drive shafts, all that malarkey. And the red hot's for sale as well. If I haven't mentioned that, it's been advertised on Facebook and a few other places, but I need to get shot of that so I can start playing with this. In regards to the car itself, all I've done really is I've done a very little bit of cleaning under the bonnet. Obviously there's no front end on, just while I've had a few minutes to kill, cleaning up a few bits and pieces, looking at a few things. We are going to relocate the water pump slightly to make the front end fit a little bit better, and also to give them a bit more clearance for our front towing bracket. And pretty much that's about it. I mean, I can't really do much at all because it's on the trailer. Another thing I have done is I bought some cheap axle stands, and we've noticed that in each of the four corners of the car, if you can see it, there's a point there where you can put, in theory, you could put a little axle stand in with a little or 12 or 13 mil bit of steel work, and then you can hold it up like that. So that's more metal work I've ordered. I'm gonna try that, see if that works. Hopefully it should be strong enough to hold the weight of the car up. It shouldn't be too bad. The axle stands are going to be well overweight, but you know, the little pin, with it being such a small diameter, I'm a little bit wary of that, but we'll see how we come on for that. I've ordered a few odds and ends, but I haven't ordered a seat yet. I haven't ordered fire extinguishers, any of that sort of stuff. I've not really looked into it because, well, I've looked into it, but I've not bought anything. But I was sort of thinking of leaving off buying a seat until January of next year to get an extra year's date on the seat, unless there's some really nice seats come up in a sale that are, you know, worth buying. I don't mind losing a year's use out of a dated seat if I can get a really good seat for a really good bargain. We'll see. Obviously we need to go somewhere to put our fat asses in a seat as well, because just the standard one's probably not going to fit because fat. Yeah, so that's it. Next bit of progress will still be on the trailer. Hopefully we'll get somehow we'll have to get some room made so that we can get the car off the trailer, do a little bit on the car, and then start seriously on the refabrication of the trailer, because obviously we can't do anything as it sits at the moment with the car in there. Yeah, I think that's just about it. One thing to point out is that I haven't told Christopher yet. Possible deadline for getting it all done will be 30th of April, which is the Mark 1 Performance Action Day at Brighton. It makes sense to get a track day in by getting it ready for that, but obviously we've got a good amount of fabrication work to do on the trailer, which won't be that hard once we get started, but it's just a case of, you know, getting started. And then there's the work to do on the car. The car, if it had a seat, would do the track day as it stands, but it wouldn't do like a proper, you know, regulation event. So that's what we're aiming towards in the future. But whether we just get out in April, get a track day done, learn to drive it for the first time ever, then worry about getting the rest of the parts done to get it motorsport passported and all that sort of stuff, we'll wait and see. Because I can imagine next year's going to be just as busy, because don't forget, I've got Bumblebee, engine needs to come out with that, Red Hot needs to be sold, that needs a few bits and pieces, Morris needs a few bits and pieces, customer cars are starting to line up a little bit for early next year as well. People want the cars doing for the show season. So yeah, so like I said, just keep an eye out for the next video. No idea when it's going to be, just when I've got something to show you. Okay, cheers for now, bye.